This is the latest edition of Front Up, and I'm Whitey Willauer, and I got a great guest today, dualmcintyre. Dual, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Whitey. Happy to be here.
Tell me a little bit about what you've been involved with on Nantucket. You've been in a bunch of different positions. And
I've been involved in a lot of things. I'm currently a member of the Prospect Hill Cemetery Association Board, doing work on that. I belong to the Rotary Club.
Weren't you head of that at one time?
No, okay. I wasn't. I've been on the board for a while, but I'm a member there. And I'm very involved with the Tom Nevers Civic Association and the Property Owners Association of Tom Nevers East, and still a little bit with the Civic League, but I've drawn back a lot of the work that I've done.
You used to be one of the interviewers, not interrogators.
Yes, yeah. I used to do the Meet the Candidates nights things like that for them. So, but I've been trying to withdraw from a lot of things because I've been working on a project, this book that I'm working on, and
I want to talk about the book, but weren't you with an ad hoc finance committee?
I was, yes, I was the facilitator for the ad hoc finance committee a couple of years ago, and we were very proud of the work that committee had done. And in fact, I was talking with Libby not so long ago. More than half of the recommendations that committee made has already been implemented.
Yeah, and she was talking about resurrecting this and saying, you know, these are still valid, and let's get going on them. And I talked to a couple of the members of the committee, and they'd be happy to get together again and do a quick update or take a look at it again. But, it's always interesting if you put it away for a couple of years and you come back and say, "Oh, we've done that," but oh, we forgot about that. So it's it's quite a interesting process when you do that.
And this is one of the few studies that's been done in a while that hasn't gone on the shelf and sat there.
That's right.
It's been active.
That's right. Most of them slowly disappeared. Yeah. So tell me about this book that you're involved with.
Well, I just finished the actual writing of it. It's something that I've been working on for probably close to 10 years.
Wow.
It's a book about my father, who was a surgeon in the Navy during the Second World War. And he served in North Africa, went through the invasion of Sicily and Salerno, and then was stationed back in North Africa in Bizerte at a dispensary. And unfortunately, he did not make it back. So the only...
He didn't make it back because of the war? Or?
No, he drowned off the coast of Bizerte in May of 1944. And I was, at the time, I was 4 years old.
And were you there? I mean,
no.
You weren't in North Africa?
No. We were home back in the States.
I see.
But he was, he wrote about 140 letters to my mother, and she kept them. And when he died, she kind of put them away and left them to me as kind of a legacy of what he was doing in North Africa and the kind of things that he went through before he died. So the book is basically taking those letters and transcribing them. And then I've done a lot of research down in the National Archives and gotten a lot of information about the battles that he went through. I have all of the after-action reports for both the Sicilian campaign and the Salerno campaign. I've gotten copies of books that were written by men who were on the ship with them. I've interviewed a number of men that were still alive, and have basically reconstructed where he was and what his naval career was like and what he went through. So it's been interesting to me, and what I've really done was learn a great deal about my father and what he went through, because I was a little tyke. I was 3 when he left, and I was 4 when he died.
Don't even remember him.
I do have some memories of them, but they're very hazy and just a little child's memory of it.
Now, have you looked at the other side, the Wehrmacht and people and the Italians and what they were going through? Have you delved into that?
Not really, although a lot of the things that he did benefited the local people. The dispensaries that they set up, that the Navy had set up, local people would come in for treatment, and he wrote quite often in his records, in his letters, of the people, the French people, the Italians, and others that he had worked on and given medical care to.
Now, was he involved with General Patton in the Sicilian campaign?
As a matter of fact, he was, and General Patton came down to the beach. He was on an LST. And
your father or General Patton?
No, my father.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think General Patton was on an LST.
No.
The nickname for them, by the way, is Large Slow Targets. That's what the LST stands for.
Yeah, sure.
But General Patton.
I thought it was landing ship tank.
It is. That's the official. That's the official.
So it puts the tanks
acronym.
ashore for General Patton. Yeah.
And during the invasion of Sicily, the British landed on the easternmost beaches, and the Americans, General Patton's army, landed on the westernmost beaches. And the LST that my father was on the western beaches. And there was a story, the captain of the ship, of the LST that my father was on, was standing offshore, and the ship that was in front of him on the beach was shelled and damaged and had to withdraw. And my father's ship, there was a colonel on it from General Patton's staff who was observing the landings.
Now, this wasn't the Marine Corps.
No, this was Army.
Was the Marine Corps involved in the landing?
No, this was the Third Army that was doing it. But in any event, this colonel was up on the bridge, and he saw what had happened to the ship that had gone in before, and he turned to the captain and said, "You're not going to go in there, are you?" And he said, "Just watch me." And he drove the LST up on the beach so far that the soldiers and the tanks could walk ashore without getting wet.
Yeah.
So and later on, General Patton came down to the beach and
thanked him, I'm sure.
No, he was displeased with the speed with which the ships were being unloaded, and I guess he applied a size 9 or 12 someplace to get people moving a little bit faster, and they did. But my father saw that and related it. But fortunately, it wasn't his ship that was delayed when they were doing it. It was one or two down the row.
I see.
But he did show up in his Jeep with his pearl-handled revolvers on the side.
And then your father went from there. Did he go up to the other landings further on up? Yes.
What the concept that they were following was the Navy was trying out the idea of putting surgeons and medical personnel on amphibious ships, so that on the trip over they would take war material and people, put them on the beach, and then on the trip back they would take casualties back to the hospitals in North Africa. So during the invasion of Sicily, this LST made 7 trips back and forth between North Africa and Sicily, taking over war supplies on the northbound trip, and then evacuating casualties on the southbound.
To North Africa.
To North Africa. The Navy had and the Army had hospitals all throughout North Africa where they would basically give extended care to those that had been wounded. They got first aid treatment initially on at the battlefront, and then were transported back to the LSTs and then back to the hospitals.
Because nowadays, of course, we have the hospitals on board the LHAs and
yes,
things like
yes,
that, 1,800 bed hospitals.
Yeah. They do, but this was a concept that the Navy was experimenting with.
Yeah, it's the only thing you could do back then.
Right.
Yeah.
And they had actually recruited about 120 doctors to become amphibious surgeons who would be on these LSTs. They used them extensively during the Normandy invasion, and then also very much in the South Pacific when they were doing the island hopping invasions there.
Did your father go, was he involved in the June 6th invasion?
No, he died before that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He died on May 18th, 1944, and Normandy, of course, was June 6th, 1944.
Yeah, yeah. And how did he drown?
He had gone down to a beach in the late afternoon with a number of other medical doctors. They'd gone swimming, and he got caught in an undertow offshore, or a current offshore. Could not get back, and by the time they got to him, he was drowned.
Wow, wow.
So
now he was North Africa, Sicily. And did he go up?
No, then he went through the invasion of Salerno after
the beach of Salerno.
Yeah. What had happened was...
Did he go down on the? Did he get on the beach, or?
He did, but he wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
What had happened was, as you may recall, Italy surrendered the day before the invasion of Salerno took place. So there was a lot of uncertainty about whether the landing at Salerno would be opposed. But the Germans had anticipated the Italian surrender, and they had moved their forces down.
We were still fighting the Germans, but the Italians had surrendered.
Italians had surrendered, but the Germans had, in essence, occupied Italy. They'd moved their panzer divisions and so on down there. And the German general in charge had anticipated the invasion of Salerno and moved the 10th Panzer Division down right at Salerno. So as the invasion fleet was approaching, they were under orders not to fire until they were fired apart. Yeah. No, the Americans, because
it might be
the Italians would if they were there and the Germans weren't. And as they approached the beaches, of course, the Germans opened up, and then it was a very much more difficult landing than Salerno was, which was a much easier landing. But during the course of that invasion, the Germans bombed and sank one of the 4 hospital ships that were off the beaches. So the call went out then, with 25% of their wounded capacity gone. My father and a number of others were ordered to LSTs again to go over and treat the wounded, and they made a number of trips back and forth.
Now, did they have air cover then?
They did. It was difficult in Sicily because it was a very long flight for the air cover from North Africa,
or anything like that. They'd have to.
They flew over from North Africa, and
land-based.
And the time that they could have on station was relatively short. So most of the opposition on the Sicilian invasion was from German planes that were flying, and they would kind of pop up over the hills and go down and strafe the beaches and then go back or bomb the beaches.
Now, did Anzio come before Salerno?
No, Anzio was after Salerno, and it was an attempt. The Germans were very effective in fighting a rear guard action and giving ground very slowly as the battle progressed up the Italian peninsula. So General Mark Clark, was in charge of the Allied forces, and he tried to pull an end run around the Germans and went into Anzio, but it was, most historians agree, it was not a very well conceived operation. They were stymied by the Germans so that the beachhead was relatively small and was under fire constantly, and they were unable for a long period of time to push away from the beachhead. And at the same time, the Allies were gearing up for the Normandy invasion, so they had withdrawn a lot of LSTs and amphibious ships from the Mediterranean and taken them up to England.
Was your father at Anzio?
No. He just went through the Sicilian invasion, Operation Husky, and then Operation Avalanche, which was Salerno.
Salerno. And then he died
prior to Normandy, yeah.
And prior to Anzio? Probably not.
I think Anzio was prior to Normandy, because the Normandy invasion helped to relieve some of the pressure as the Germans withdrew forces to put them into France.
Now, you had a Navy career also.
I did. I spent about 4 years on active duty. I got a commission through OCS. Spent about 4 years on active duty in destroyers, and then I joined the reserves and stayed in the reserves for another 26 years. So I had a total of 30 years in the Navy before I retired.
Were you called back?
A couple of times, yeah. We were activated, usually for short periods of time, but we got activated twice.
And you retired as a
striper? I retired as a four-striper, a captain, yep.
Yeah, that's great.
And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the reserves. It was a wonderful, total service time. I had more than 22 years in seagoing billets.
Oh, really?
Which is very unusual. If I'd been on active duty the entire time, I wouldn't have had anywhere near that amount of time. So I spent a lot of time at sea, and I loved it. We had destroyers that were reserve destroyers in the New York City area, and I served on a number of those. And then we had an LST in the New York area. They had one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast, and I was on that for a while. And then I was also in a training unit it was a Guantanamo Bay Fleet Training Group.
Oh, you're down at Guantanamo.
Spent a lot of time in Gitmo.
Were there prisoners there?
No prisoners, except occasionally that we'd catch iguanas down there. Those are the only prisoners we had. So.
Now, why did the Cubans let us continue there at Gitmo? I mean, it's their island.
It is,
their
but
enemy.
It is, but there was a treaty that was signed after the Spanish-American War, which gave the United States the right to the Guantanamo Bay naval base, and the only way that could be terminated was by mutual agreement from both parties, by both the Cubans and the United States.
I'm surprised that Castro didn't say the heck with that and march in there. But
well, he did. He tried to force us out in the beginning because the water supply in Guantanamo came from the Guantanamo River, and he stopped the water supply. And then what the Navy did was install desalinization plants, and they had a couple of big old Navy tankers that were anchored out in the harbor, and they filled them up with fresh water. And if the desalinization plant was working well and so on, then people who lived on the base could water their cars or water their lawns and wash their cars. But if they were running low on water, if something happened with the desalinization plant, then they'd ban all of that. So, but it was quite. I enjoyed my time at Guantanamo. I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, I imagine it's lovely, actually.
But the Fleet Training Group's job was to ride ships and perform training and also perform operational readiness evaluations and so on. So,
well, I see we're getting the signal that we've reached the limit. Our pumpkin has arrived.
The pumpkin has arrived.
Yes. So did I ask you all the questions that I should have asked about your book? When is it going to be published?
It'll probably come out this late spring or early summer. And the title of it is Dr. Mac, Letters from a Surgeon Who Didn't Come Back.
Oh my goodness.
So it's, I'm going to, it's primarily written for family members so that they would know a little bit about my father. But,
self-published?
Self-published, yep.
That's
and
great.
I will have some copies here on the island if anybody wants them.
Put it in a bookstore downtown?
I don't know. I haven't gotten that far yet. I got to get it published. Just finished writing it.
Well, Dual, thank you very much. Appreciate your coming in and
well, thank you for having me.
What you're doing, and it's great.
Thank you for having me.
Right.